Hey, everybody, and welcome back. This is episode 2 of the More Than Nothing podcast. And on this episode, I'm going to read one of my Instagram posts from back in, I think it was October of last year, maybe even longer, October 30th, 2018.
Nice.
It says, people will go to a job they hate for 9 hours a day, 5 days a week for money, but 30 minutes of discomfort 4 times a week to drastically improve health and quality of life is too hard. And we're going to talk about that and what people will sacrifice for everyone else, or for money, or for their kids, or for their spouse. And they're not willing to sacrifice a little bit of time or discomfort for their own health and well-being. I've asked Julian to come because my goal on the More Than Nothing podcast is to bring other people in to share kind of their point of view of some of these posts that I've done in the past and ways that this has impacted their life. And I have a specific question I'm going to ask you about this. 2 specific questions.
I'm excited.
Before we get into it, I'm going to read what I actually wrote. So that was on the actual picture of the post. I'm going to read what I wrote underneath it kind of as the caption, to give you an idea and to remind myself actually where my head was at when I posted it. I wrote, we all need to make a living. Some of those ways suck, but you do what you got to do. At the end of the day, no amount of money will provide you the benefits that physical exercise will give you. You can't buy it. You can't hire someone to do it for you. There is no better antidepressant or self-esteem booster on the market. And at some point, no amount of money will save you from the health complications that come from a lifetime of avoiding it. So, sounds really well written.
It was really well written. Before we start, I just want to give a shout out to our health. Because we got approved for life insurance, and it was a really good plan because of our health.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
So, just a little insider tip here. You want good life insurance? Get your health on check.
So going down the money route, you'll also save money on your insurance.
Absolutely.
And your doctor's bills and all of that stuff, actually.
Yeah.
If you are healthy.
Yes, you will.
So I specifically was talking about working out in that post, but I think we can take it a bunch of different ways. Kind of what I was thinking about and getting ready for this episode of the podcast is every choice that we make requires sacrifice. So you sacrifice time for your job, and you replace that time, I guess, with whatever the money is that they're paying you. We sacrifice stuff for other people all the time. One thing that I've posted about this at random times before too, is the amount of sacrifice it takes to be a parent.
Yeah, a lot.
You give up, for the woman, the moment you find out you're pregnant, your whole life is a sacrifice for this little baby. Mm-hmm. And then for the next 18, 20, who knows how many years, I guess we'll find out. Your mom is still sacrificing for you to this day,
Absolutely.
So we're willing to give up so much for money. We're willing to give up so much to look cool. People will sacrifice, from the time you realize being cool is a thing and that's a possibility, people will sacrifice their money, their time, their all of it. And so it's really interesting to me because I do hear, both of us hear all the time, working out. It's so, I just hate it. I hate working out. Well, a lot of people hate their jobs and they still go there every single day. It's so uncomfortable. Being pregnant's uncomfortable, and not sleeping for 17 months is uncomfortable, but we did it because it was worth it. And to me, physical fitness and health, what could possibly be more worth it than that? So I wanted to start with you before we get into how we've been uncomfortable, because I do feel like people assume that fit people are not uncomfortable when they're working out, that they don't like eating food that tastes really tasty, and that they're just different, and it's not as hard for them or as uncomfortable or miserable for them as it is for somebody who doesn't like to work out or doesn't do it. So we'll get to that in a second, but kind of to make it more fun, I want to ask you, what is your worst job you've ever had that you went to? And I know you had one that you quit really quick, so maybe not that one, a job that you actually did not like but stuck to and went to it for a good period of time just because you needed to make money.
I would say any job before I was 18, to be honest. After that, I kind of really enjoyed what I was doing. But if I'm going to rewind here and think about ones that I really didn't like, when I was like 15, I was an ice cream scooper at the Tillamook Cheese Factory, actually. And I thought it was kind of cool for like the first month or two because it's like your first job. And you get excited, and you
feel like super responsible in your first job.
You feel super responsible. You're finally getting paid. You think you're independent. You're learning new things, but then you get into the position where you stop learning new things, and it just becomes routine, and then you're just like bored out of your mind. And then mostly I started getting really annoyed because I wanted to keep learning more, but there's like a ladder that you have to climb, and being the individual that I am, and I always want to continue learning once I feel like I'm like, if I'm in a position where I'm not learning, I get really irritated and I get bored super fast and I just want to leave. So.
Geez, I'll write that down for our marriage.
No, but there's always things that we're learning, so that's why it's awesome.
I'll keep you on your toes, that's for sure.
Exactly. So for that job, I just got, it got really repetitive for me after a while. But I spoke up finally and told them, I was like, hey, like, I feel like I can be doing more. And then they gave me more responsibility, and that was pretty cool. But eventually, like, you kind of outgrow your time there and you're ready for new things. Of course. I mean,
so it just got boring.
16, I got boring. And then I attempted to do job number 2 was like this, working at a mechanic shop. And I mean, they made me do all the crappy work.
Oh, you were the manual labor kid.
That was the sweep up, wash the truck, this and this and that, which of course, like, that all teaches like lessons for sure, but those are the lessons that taught me that I never want to do this for the rest of my life.
So I would say there's a good lesson, because my worst job ever too, I worked at a dentist's office in the front desk when I was like 16, 17 maybe. And it was so, and I'm not talking like a big dentist's office with like multiple dentists and dental hygienists. It was one dentist, and it was like one patient coming in at a time, and it was like still filing everything with like actual files, and like it wasn't, computer systems were still like not very good.
Right.
Like in the Stone Ages. It was so boring.
Yeah.
And I don't even think there was like a window besides the door was like a glass door. It was so boring, and the dentist office music, and he was older, and it was so boring. And I think like that boredom part, so taking it back to fitness, that's another thing that people will say, like, oh, working out is so boring. And I think that they, first of all, assume that it needs to be boring because what they're picking is maybe boring to do, but also, it's sometimes not every meal is the most like exciting meal you've ever had. When you're eating healthy, it's tasty, but if you're chasing this like tastiest meal ever every time you eat, and every workout needs to be this like exciting, who knows what, you're going to be jumping from bandwagon to bandwagon and trying all these new programs, and anything that you do for longer than a couple weeks is going to feel boring to you. And again, like sacrificing and knowing like, hey, it's working out. It's taking care of your body. It's not supposed to be this like exciting thing. Like that's what you go to the movies for. That's what you go, to Disneyland for. It's not your day-to-day workouts. It's just, you just get it done and you don't overthink it so much. And I think people assume that it's always supposed to be this exciting thing, and they're chasing that in many areas of their life, but fitness is one of them. So I wanted to talk about my personal, and just let people know that even like I've been working out consistently since I was 17 years old. So we're looking at almost 20 years.
Oh yeah, that's consistency.
That's how old I am, guys. I'll be 37 this week. So over half my life, I've been consistent in training, and people just assume that it's because I love it so much. Well, I do, but only because of the benefits. Mm-hmm. I'll say that like, probably like 80% of the time still to this day when I'm working out, I don't like it. Do you? In the workout, are you just like, this is the best feeling I've ever felt?
No, definitely not. It's very painful.
Like, I'll be really quickly afterwards, like stoked about it. Or like if it's a team workout, sometimes I'll be having a good time, or depends on the crew, but it's always uncomfortable.
It's always uncomfortable. It's just like your mindset towards it. I know for me, when I'm in that position, I also know the benefits of being uncomfortable, right? Like, okay, like
Yeah.
pushing through, and I know that this uncomfort is going to lead to gain.
Yeah, so kind of my story that I wanted to share, and then I had a specific thing I was going to ask you about because it's on a little bit of a different topic than mine, is years ago, I guess like maybe 5 years ago, I had a goal and I was working toward competing at the CrossFit Games with a team. And so there was a crew of us. For me, this started, I think, in like 2013 when I started doing this type of training, where we had a running and a swimming coach. And because these long running and ocean swimming events had become like a normal thing in CrossFit, and I was by far the slowest runner in our group, and the worst, like I didn't know how to swim putting my face in the water, worst swimmer in our group. And twice a week we were running and once a week we were swimming. And not only was I the worst, which already like, it's never fun to be the worst person in the group at anything. Physically, it was so painful for me. I was so bad at it because all the people that I trained with, like, I think most of them, if not all of them, played sports their whole life growing up. So like Molly's over here, she's been playing soccer her whole life and ran marathons. And then Jen's over here and she was like a D1 still holds records swimmer. And I was like high school cheerleader. So I remember I would drive to the track and we'd meet at like 7 a.m. and I'd be crying.
Yeah.
Like I did not want to go. I knew how bad it was going to hurt, and I was still going to come in last, and I was going to be embarrassed, and I was going to be just wrecked for the whole day afterwards. But I had this goal to do it, and I was willing to sacrifice all of that over and over again for years. And the lesson here too is, even at the end of years of doing that, I was still the slowest person in our group and still by far the worst swimmer, but I was better, way better than I was before. I think I PR'd my mile by like maybe a minute and a half or something like that. And could swim and did the ocean swims, like not fast or well, but I was, comfortable enough to do it. And I was better than the people who weren't doing it at all.
I think the cool thing about your position, obviously in the time it probably felt like the worst, but I would much rather be in your position than be in a position where you're the best in that group, because you would at least always have a good measure or something to chase, as opposed to, can you imagine like the person that was always winning?
Yeah.
They're just kind of like, obviously they're competing against themselves at that point, but in your position, I think it's, there was like definitely, I'd rather be in your position for sure.
Yeah, there's been like studies done, and I'm not going to like cite who, but because I've listened to so many different random books lately. But on one of the books I was listening to recently, I think it was The Art of Not Giving a F by Mark Manson. He was talking about how studies have actually shown that the pursuit of the goal is what actually gives people like good feelings.
Yeah.
Like they've measured it scientifically, and once people have the goal, it's not ever as much great as they think that it's going to be. So it's the pursuit of it that's always good. So yeah, that was kind of my like really to show you guys like, hey, even fit people, like it freaking hurts. And some days you hate it. And if you have a goal in mind, like you kind of gotta go for it and do it and sacrifice. And the other thing too that I wanted to bring up is it sucked for me being the slowest, but I came to a point when I realized like, hey, I don't deserve to be as good of a runner as Molly, and I don't deserve to be as good of a swimmer as Jen. They already sacrificed so much in their life while I was running around being a high school cheerleader. They were training. She was at soccer practice and she was uncomfortable then, and now I'm having to catch up. So it's not that I think a lot of times too where people are like, oh yeah, but you're already fit, so like it's easier for you. Well, hang on, like I've already paid my dues, like I've already put in the amount of pain and suffering while maybe you were watching Netflix and I was working out. So everybody that has something has, for the most part, especially physical fitness, has earned it. they've earned it, and and you can earn it too, but everybody's got to start somewhere, and try not to compare where you're at with where people are at, other people, because you don't know their origin story and what they've already gone through to get to where they are. So
I think one of the problems that we face nowadays is the fact that people think working out has to be so structured, right? Did a post about this and what fitness freedom looks like, right? And I think that the beauty of street parking has been allowing people to see the fitness freedom in things, right? There's so many different ways you can get the same workout and not get bored of it. So many people feel like they have to stick to that structure where I've been randomly, if I don't feel like doing one thing, I'll do the other, right? That's why we provide all these different options, and I think it's really cool. But even then, with all those different options, there's mixing up those options, right? If you have the more tools you have accessible at your home, the more you can definitely have fun and get creative and have a good time with it. But yeah, people always just get stuck in this rut because they're doing the same thing over and over, and they're like, oh man, I need to change it up, I need to go do something else. Always find ways to continue making what you're doing entertaining and fun, and it doesn't take much. It really doesn't.
No, it's just consistency. And actually, like, while you were talking about that, I got brought back to, because I feel like this is something that people can relate to. When I was between the ages of 7 and 12, I took piano lessons. Actually, no, it was 9. I got the piano when I was 9 years old. I took piano lessons, and I freaking hated practicing. And you can't just, it's one of those things. It doesn't take a lot of time, but you got to be consistent with it to improve. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't just practice for 9 hours one day and be really good. But if I put it into 30-minute little increments and added up over time and got to 9 hours, I'm going to get way more out of that. And so that's where people think that it needs to be super structured or take so much time or this big plan or have all this equipment, but it's more just keep chipping away at it. Mm-hmm. And
you just have to know what your goals are, right? Obviously, right, there's different levels of fitness, but for the majority of the people, they just want to work out to feel better, to make their lives healthier than the average person. But now, I think sometimes people in their heads think they're going to be some kind of competitor in working out because they get motivated by the competitor in working out. And I think that sometimes gets in their heads and they feel like they're so far behind. And that's why we've kind of taken our knowledge and kind of brought it back to reality for a lot of the people to let them know, hey, fitness in general, if you're working hard, is going to suck for every level of fitness person, someone working out, but just know what your goals are. And then for the majority of us, it's literally, I just want to better my life and stay healthy, consistently healthy for the duration of my lifetime.
Don't let dreams of going on American Idol ruin your karaoke night.
Exactly.
Just enjoy the karaoke night and have fun with it.
Absolutely.
And just let it be what it is for you and let it improve your life and not take over your life is the big thing. Okay, so what I wanted to ask you, because I talked about kind of the physical fitness side and we've talked about fitness a lot. When I met you, your diet
disaster
was not great.
No, it was horrible.
And you have changed it, but it wasn't an overnight thing. I remember one phone conversation where I was yelling at you, saying how dare you eat this way? You have all this potential and you're throwing it away. Yes, you're great at exercise, congrats, but you could be so much better. You're not even trying. You work out, but you're not even trying to improve. I don't know who knows why.
It was it was the weird,
so mad.
It was the weirdest argument because she was mad at me. I think I was just frustrated. Me at the same time. I was I don't know what to do with this information right now.
It's like when you see your kid who has potential and they're just throwing it away and you're like, oh my gosh, you just try, just do something with this. And that's kind of how I felt about you at the time in your diet. So let's talk about things that you've given up and how it was hard for you. And why don't you explain how you ate, first of all, when I first met you?
I mean, there was no structure to it for sure. I just kind of relied on the amount of working out I was doing at the time because I was competing, right? And letting that take care of all the crappy food that I was eating. But
So give examples of like a day of eating.
I mean, depends on the day, right? Because Monday was like
Start with like the breakfast burrito day.
Let me start with the day, right? So I knew this like little mom and pop shop that I could get like a skirt steak with hash browns and ranch dressing and like a side of like wheat toast, and I would just crush that, and I wouldn't eat literally. I think that was all I would eat in the morning. Actually, before that, right? Because I would coach like these 5:30 a.m. classes. I would go to the local donut shop by my house, and I would get like a cinnamon roll and a chai tea latte. No, and a chai tea.
Oh gosh.
So talk about a sugar attack. So by 7:30, I had a headache. My body was like, I felt like I was crashing, and that's why. But then at 10 o'clock, then I would eat that skirt steak with hash browns, ranch, and my toast with egg. And then I wouldn't eat until I was done training at like 4:30 p.m.
And then what?
And then I would go eat the Habit Burger or Jersey Mike's
Or what, wing night?
It depends on the day, because Monday it was Wingstop. They had 50-cent boneless wings, Monday and Tuesday actually. So either day, right? You know, and so, or actually Wingstop on Mondays, or Tuesdays was Buffalo Wild Wings.
I know, you made me go with you one time.
Yeah, and then, you know, you just got to know what deals to shop for sure.
And then you would drink like, what was that, Triple X?
The Triple X vitamin, the vitamin...
It was basically
water,
Kool-Aid.
vitamin water,
basically Kool-Aid.
Yeah, it was like sugar for sure. I mean, it was the worst diet ever.
So how did you like one by one change that? Because here's the other reality. First of all, even fit people are uncomfortable when they're working out. Reality number two, fit people do enjoy the taste of tasty foods. It's not like we walk around like, oh yeah, donuts are disgusting or whatever. We just choose not to eat them because we know the benefits outweigh, you know, the tastiness. So how did you get past that? Like, what was your kind of like step-by-step process? Because it's been years.
Yeah, I think what really helped out, and this is the perfect example of consistency, right? And not changing it overnight. I think what helped a lot for me was watching your eating habits. And the fact that you never really pressured me into changing my eating habits, you just kind of were the example.
Just made judgy facial expressions.
Yeah, because for me, like, think about it. You go to places because you feel like you're not being judged, right? You're like going to eat wings, and you have with friends that just crush the wings. They don't care, so you don't even feel bad, right? But then, like, what I would be with you, you would just be like, no, it's okay. I'm going to eat something else. And then I would just feel like a total a-hole for eating my shitty food and watching you eat something clean and know that you were making the better choice. So I was like, wow, I didn't like that feeling. So over time, I would just kind of gradually make changes to adjust to how you were eating. But for example, like oatmeal, right? I couldn't just go from eating no oatmeal to oatmeal the way you ate it, which you were just happy with like strawberries and berries, bananas, and almond butter. And that's it. I couldn't do that. I was like, no way.
Yeah, you used to put like honey and stuff on it
So I would
at
have to
first.
put honey. I would have to put like milk in it. I have to like prep it a certain way just so I could actually eat it. And even then it took me a while to finally get used to it, and now to the point where now we're eating it every day for breakfast, you know. And just knowing that you didn't enjoy going to those places like was already, for me, it's like, man, like I was respecting your choices as well, so I wasn't going to put you in that position because like that's unfair, you know. And I know that I could have done something to better my life, so I was like, all right. Then that's where the even eating out or eating certain things was like.
It was tough for Julian when we were dating because his go-to to like woo a girl was like taking her to all this like random ass food, like,
Fat
and
Sal's.
it just didn't impress me. Like I actually preferred not to eat that way every single time we went out. So you had to come up with something new for sure.
I did 100%, but it was all for the better, you know. And also, when you kind of get into the point where you realize that you can't sustain that kind of eating, like for me, I was still competing, and I knew the only reason I was able to eat that way is because of how much I was like, or the intensity of training that I was putting in. And I knew that, let's just say after I got done competing, shortly after, I was still kind of eating that way, but my training started the volume started to come down, and I started to feel really sick. I was like, oh man, I can't really do this. I used to crush cereal for dinner.
Oh yeah,
all the time.
You would eat like the 11 p.m. cereal like every night.
I always had to do my bowl of cereal at night, and I got to a point where even that started kind of slowly. I realized that I was only doing that because I got to a point where I started learning about nutrition from you as well, because I was like, I like taking an interest in this. And I also owned a meal prep company, so it was kind of like, all right, you better understand what
Yeah, I
you're doing.
remember asking, like, why don't you just eat the food you guys make? Like, it's delicious, because I was eating it all the time.
Yeah. And so every little piece was, it was just a progression, you know? It was always a progression. But so now I don't eat the cereal, and I know all that high sugary food just does give me a headache. But I'm to a point now where I feel like I do have control. Kind of like you were saying, we travel, we come back, we can eat like we do when we actually are on vacation. Or if I want to we have a pizza night, we know that that dinner is just going to be that dinner, that meal. And we just kind of go back to our regular eating routine, which there's different ways of making it exciting, again, right? So you don't get too bored of it. But it's been a 4-year progression. And even now, I'm still making changes.
And do donuts still taste tasty to you?
Absolutely. I know that. Here's the thing. I tell my dad, too, because my dad, you know, you're around these Hispanic families or friends that haven't adopted that lifestyle, so they'll make comments that like, oh, it's so funny how they feel awkward around you when they make a purchase.
Oh, people are so awkward eating in front of you if you are a healthy eater.
I remember this was the funniest experience. We were at my cousin's house. I won't name names. They'll know who I'm talking
I remember
about.
this. She like hid the cereal.
So and then like their son came and said, "Mama, I want cereal, Cocoa Puffs," and she like looks at him and she's like, "Shh, shh, shh, shh." And he's like, "Mama, Cocoa Puffs," and she looks at my cousin, and he's like,
"We don't care if your kid eats Cocoa Puffs."
He's comfortable around me because he was my roommate, but he was just like, "What? Can you get him Cocoa Puffs?" And she's like making these weird faces, and you could tell there was like an awkwardness, as if like we were judging her, but we weren't actually, because it's like, hey, I like Cocoa Puffs. I'll crush some Cocoa Puffs. If someone gave me a bowl of Cocoa Puffs right now and left it in front of me, I would probably eat it. I tell the staff all the time, don't bring in shitty food, because the thing is, I will eat it. If it's in front of me, the temptation, it's like you said, because you read a book one time, right? When you're at a grocery store, you have to make one decision to not pick up an item. You make one choice that moment. But if you bring it to your house or
once it's at the house, forget it.
You're making a choice every moment you're walking past that item.
Yes.
To not eat it. And why would you put yourself in that position? So I'll tell them, guys, if you bring cookies in here, most likely I'm probably going to eat it, and I don't like that. So just don't bring it. You know?
So what you're saying is that fit people also don't have like this just like crazy willpower. You say no to it once at the store, but you don't have it in your house. You got to just like avoid it, or at your work or whatever.
Exactly.
It's not like, because you put some brownies in front of me, I'll eat it.
And I tell my dad this too, because I take him to Costco. We go to Costco, and he's like buying these random. He's like, don't say anything. I was like, I'm not going to say anything. I was like, Dad, to be honest, I like that stuff still. I really do. I like donuts. I like these desserts. But again, I know that if it's at the house, I'm probably going to eat it. He's like, oh, okay. But it's like, you just got to make a choice.
And kind of like to wrap it up, like 2 other thoughts that I had about this topic were, there's the discomfort that that's the discomfort that people are in right now. So if you're overweight, or if you're just like unhappy with your health or your diet or whatever, you're uncomfortable about it and you don't like it, but you at least know it, versus the discomfort that you don't know. Like you assume that it's so hard to work out, or maybe you've tried something that's too over the top. So you just kind of stay in your comfort bubble and make excuses. With that, you have to pay attention to who's like agreeing with your excuses and your complaints.
Yes.
If you find yourself surrounded with people that, if you're like, oh, it's just, like it's just too hard, and all of your friends are like, yeah, it's too hard, you need to find a new group of people, because those people are always going to be complainers with you, and you guys are just going to go in this circle of complaining and excuses, and you need that person, like I guess for you with the eating, it was me, to just be not judgy if you fall off track, but show you a better way. And, maybe every once in a while people need the angry girlfriend phone call of like, hey, like you're messing up, and you told me that you want to do this, and you're not acting in accordance with what you told me. And I think that you could do more and do better. If you are constantly around people who are just yes men, or who agree that working out's too hard, or agree that it's too hard to clean up your diet, then you're probably never going to fix it. You're going to be in the office full of people that are bringing in crappy stuff and nobody to support your goals. And you got to get out of those situations in the cases that you can.
Yep.
So that is it. And thanks for sharing your nutrition story with us. And thanks for coming on the More Than Nothing podcast.
I appreciate you bringing me on your little podcast.
Don't call it a little podcast. It's a big podcast.
I appreciate you having me on your big podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you. If you guys enjoyed this podcast, please share it with somebody else who you think needs it. And make sure to follow the hashtag More Than Nothing on Instagram to get some motivation from those out there doing just that.